Blessed are we who mourn. That music was John Saxon's own piano arrangement of Magnificent, the U2 composition first heard in 2009 when the album was released, then arranged by John later that year and played at the memorial service in this sanctuary for my son Ian. It was entirely John's idea, simply because he knew how much Ian had loved the music of U2, and especially that song. Now, 6 years later, John and Debbie have traveled back to Castle Rock to be with us in celebration of the magnificence of Raedene VandenHeuvel's life. When he released the album, Bono, the leader of U2, said, "The song is about two lovers holding on to each other and trying to turn their life into worship." It's as though he'd known them. For that's my perception of what Raedene and Steve have done. Long ago, they were called to turn their lives into worship. Magnificence and the sense of wonder involved in its perception is rare in human behavior, as we are too often destined to learn. Too few of us search for magnificence or make the appreciation of it a priority in our lives. Too many of us are far too busy to respond with joy and a quiet prayer of appreciation for the things in earthly life that are simply magnificent. Raedene's life was filled with such discoveries and the cherishing, the savoring of their magnificence. Her joy was in the magnificence of creation, all of it, and in the magnificence of us, the stardust children of God, of our potential, of our beauty, of the human spirit that passes all understanding. Those were the responses of her life that nourished Raedene, that set her upon the healing path, the path of a life dedicated to compassion and service. She was a nurse through all of that life, even as a child, the responsible, eldest, loving sibling. Then in hospitals and homes where doctors appear too often as consultants rather than healers. Raedene became the sublime healer with her profound knowledge, instincts, and prayers. It's not only comforting but most appropriate that we celebrate Raedene's life on this Feast of All Saints. As we who knew her know, she is now one of them, joined with the heavenly host. In the several Sunday schools that I attended, saints always seemed too perfect and too remote to appear real to me. I imagine that's true of many of us. Nobody bothered to tell us kids that saints, like angels, come in all sorts of disguises, and the real ones are never cloaked in sanctimoniousness. For they are real people, fully alive and joyfully responsive to the magnificence of creation and the human spirit. I rejoice today in Raedene's spirit. She devoted her life to loving service, to healing the mind, the body, and the spirit. Her love and her humility came with a sparkle that made us all glad and comforted to be in her presence. a sparkle that scintillated very deep with its heavenly radiance, inviting everyone to share in the love she truly felt, the love she truly was. I'm certain that Jesus would have been the first to say she was the real deal. Raedene spoke softly and carried no stick, while her somewhat salty, saintly language endeared her very widely. She expressed frustration in little more than a whisper, even as sometimes she graciously suffered fools gladly. Yet she never complained that I'm aware of. She suffered the pain of her long illness while smiling and comforting those who visited her, we who watched in anguish. She often discussed her illness as though it were happening to someone else. If ever anyone can be said to have set an example of how to live and how to die, it was Raedene. Her final concerns, as they had been throughout her life, were for others, and that is a way of defining saintliness. Another way to define it is to acknowledge that she hasn't really left us, that we who knew her will always be welcome to visit and to revisit her most welcoming spirit. We will find solace in simply remembering her. We're the lucky ones. We actually knew her. In our lifetimes, in this little place nestled in the shadows of a vast mountain range, we can say that we knew a lady who has left us to ponder the ways we see our own lives. For it's never too late for each of us to aspire to a spirit like Raedene's. We have but to open our minds and our hearts. It's that simple, and we don't do it. Raedene did. Steve, her devoted husband, also has never complained through all they shared and in these recent months endured together. His humor, his sparkle, his love for her and for us have never wavered. He, too, has shown us the way. On this day of All Saints, we are, each one of us, greatly blessed. Let us now show our love for the saints who have dwelt and now dwell among us, the ones we've been privileged to know. I think we can all agree that Raedene and her life are a tough act to follow. Her example is radiant. She expressed love through humor and patience and her unfathomable qualities of compassion and acceptance. She was born with that most elusive insight of all, an innate understanding of our follies and our imperfect, magnificent humanity. She understood suffering, and she treated it with love and the vast array of means devised by healers through the ages. She never stopped learning because she never stopped caring about those who came to her to be healed and to learn. Raedene's life was the ultimate expression of empathy, a life that was indeed worship. Amen.
Amen.